Hey, folks, welcome to the Simply Trade podcast. And I'm kind of reluctant to call it Simply Trade podcast for this episode, only because we are partnering or collaborating with the NCBFAA to bring to you a bunch of different information and episodes. So this is going to be a series. This is going to be a 4, 5, maybe even 6 episode series where we are highlighting the different committees within the NCBFAA. So it's an outreach program that we collaborated with NCBFAA to kind of just bring more of this information to the public, but also the membership. Just the membership can get to know like a quick overview of what has been going on in 2025, what are they looking forward to doing in 2026, what are their goals, what is their mission, and just so that we can bring that message to the public more than anything. And so you'll be hearing several episodes in the next few weeks regarding different committees and different efforts within the NCBFAA. To kick it off, we got the cool kids in the block to do that. So that's a transportation committee. So hopefully the other committees won't kill me, and we'll probably say the same thing for them. But anyway, so for the transportation committee, we've had Kim on our show several times before. So Kim is, and I know I'm going to be corrected. I know I may flop this several times, but Kim is the committee chair. And then she has subcommittees within the transportation committee. And in that, we have Donna Kavanaugh and we have Rich Roche. Definitely, I don't know the subcommittee, so you can probably talk about that. And then we'll get into the rest and the meat and potatoes of the episode.
Thanks, Lalo. You did a great job. I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail about the committee. So the Transportation Committee, I chair that committee, and our job is really to bring together all the different modes of transportation and different services outside of customs and the import side. So underneath the Transportation Committee, we have Rich Roche, who's the NVOCC Subcommittee Chair, and he's joining us today. We have Donna Kavanaugh, who is the Export Compliance Subcommittee Chair, also joining us today. We also have Donna Mullins, who chairs the Air Freight Subcommittee, and Merritt Tremper, who chairs the Logistics Committee. And these committees all together work to keep members updated, compliant, work with agencies to drive things forward within the industry, also to make sure that things work well on the government side to meet their objectives, but also work well for the members of the
Okay, well, just to get a little bit better understanding of what the Transportation Committee does, all the different subcommittees and everything, the fearless leader of that committee, Kim, can you kind of just give us a good overview or a good just a quick, I don't want to bore or make the actual members tune out if they already know. So just like a quick snapshot of what the Transportation Committee does within NCBFAA, and then we'll get into more details here on some of the subcommittees.
Of course, the Transportation Committee covers quite a bit of work. It covers the NVOCC side of the business. NVOCC works with members who are the non-vessel operating common carriers and their best interests, collaborating with the Federal Maritime Commission and any other agency that seems to come into contact. For example, over the past year, it's really been the U.S. Trade Representative with the vessel levies on vessels, so those vessel taxes that we've been following and talking with the trade representative and working with the FMC on that. So they cover all of that sort of ocean transportation, inbound, outbound from the United States and everything that would impact that. And that committee is chaired by Rich Roche. We also have the Export Compliance Subcommittee, which is also very, very busy doing a lot of work. It intersects with a lot of different modes of transportation, but really focusing on that export compliance side of the transaction. So making sure that freight forwarders have a good understanding of the evolving regulations, whether the regulation has come from Bureau of Industry and Security, U.S. Census, Customs and Border Protection, Directorate of Defense Trade Control, Office of Foreign Assets Control, and I could go on and on. There's a lot of agencies that fall within the Export Compliance Subcommittee. And they work with the members, like I said, to keep them updated, but they also work with those government agencies closely to focus on specific, maybe pain points like exporting self-propelled vehicles or working on electronic export manifests to make sure that while it's being developed, the different things are considered for the customs side and for the trade side. And really focus on those different things that would impact those members. We also have the Air Freight Subcommittee. Underneath the Air Freight Subcommittee, again, they focus on all things air freight, inbound and outbound, and those different things that would impact members and trade having to do with air freight. So they work with different agencies like TSA, also DOT on occasion. It's just any agency that affects that air cargo movement. And we also have the Logistics Committee, which underneath the Logistics Committee, everything that isn't covered by another committee falls under logistics. So whenever there is a work slowdown or stoppage, whether it's Canada or Mexico or the United States, that's logistics. They are currently focusing or watching the truck driver shortage, which is impacting all different services that members would need to provide to their clients. So logistics does have a wide touch on all different things that are not touched on by the other committee or sometimes intersect.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess also for a clarification, I know here at Simply Trade we normally touch on trade, but just also a clarification, NCBFAA does mean not just customs brokers, the CB on there means customs brokers, it's also freight forwarders, which is why you are covering a lot of transportation logistics, that part of the realm of, let's face it, we all overlap. We
Yes, we
all
do.
overlap and we all come together somewhere or another. One cannot move stuff if somebody doesn't clear it or vice versa and all that. So nothing's going to get cleared if it's not being moved. And so that's why we're all in the same world. And I also like to, as I said before, supply chain comes in there somewhere and somehow we'll figure that out in another episode or some other show on how to bring in supply chain into the whole mix as well. But thank you for that overview, Kim. Thank you so much. Oh, by the way, and I thought about this as I was preparing for the show. I'm not much of a transportation guy. I'm more of like in customs, as all of you may know. But so I was doing research. I was getting as much help as I can from my forced labor assistant, also known as AI. But anyway, so I was trying to get just to know, and a bunch of acronyms came, as if customs doesn't have enough acronyms already. There's a bunch of more acronyms here with transportation. So what I decided to do, and if it helps, and if it doesn't, it's okay. You can ignore it. But I'm going to put like a little glossary of a lot of these terms on the show notes. If it helps any of you, I know it helped the heck out of me. We're going to start with Rich and the NVOCC committee. So anyway, NVOCC committee or subcommittee for Rich. I was reading through some notes also that Kim was so nice to provide for me on some of the just different things that you all have been talking about and working through. Can you tell us a little more, Rich, on the NVOCC committee?
Sure. Well, just to get the first acronym out of the way, NVOCC stands for Non-Operating Vessel Common Carrier. So we are licensed by the FMC as an ocean transportation intermediary, and you can also be licensed by the FMC as a freight forwarder. So either an NVOCC or a freight forwarder. And what we do, we really look at the industry issues and concerns that we have. And in some cases, we are able to disseminate information throughout our subcommittee members and even publish those through NCBFAA to people that aren't active in the subcommittee, our findings. But we also work very closely with the Federal Maritime Commission on rules and regulations, notices of proposed rulemakings, comments, and at times we even work with the congressional and Senate offices.
Nice. So speaking of OSRA, so again, one of these other acronyms, I did find information on that you all have been working on. So that implementation, as long, it's been a long running theme, I suppose. It says since 2022, I believe that's what I read. So what progress did you see this year on rulemaking and the compliance, any clarity that might be sticking points heading into 2026?
So clarity and also lack of, that's the way our business runs. The FMC last year came out with their demurrage and detention billing rules, and it was the final rule for that. That has been implemented and is now in effect, although in 2025, that was challenged by the World Shipping Council, and the court struck down one area of that final rule. That one area is that truckers could not be billed since they were not considered to be having contractual privity with the ocean carrier or marine terminal that was invoicing. The court has struck that down and said that other third parties can be billed as they may know more about it, and they thought that the rule that the FMC came up with was arbitrary and capricious. Of course, the FMC has the opportunity to amend the rule and or appeal this ruling, but everything else from the final rule that came out on D&D billing practices has stuck, and in fact has worked out quite well. I think has improved industry billing for demurrage and detention, D&D.
Perfect. So I did also see that you all established like a best practices, what was it, working group?
Yeah, so that's a work in progress since we're putting that together just now. We haven't actually had our first meeting yet. We worked with the Federal Maritime Commission on our visit back in September, where we sat with the commissioners and staff and talked to them about establishing this NVOCC Best Practices Committee. And that's been put together. We're just now starting to formulate the first meetings where we'll start discussion on that. So that's really a 2026 goal.
Perfect.
Is to have that done.
Perfect. Yeah. So that's something that we can look forward to. And I don't like there is also let me see if I can recall a little bit of what I also read on my notes, and I'm going to try to pull them out. But there's some mention about interactions with the FMC's Office of General Counsel on D&D. Again, D&D, another acronym, detention and demurrage, and cargo receipt definitions. Like, what does this progress look like on your side, and what like implications might that be for like members or that you all have been talking about?
Sure. So during the course of the year, when we get some questions that we can't resolve internally, sometimes we'd like to go to the general counsel's office to get what their understanding is, so that we're not interpreting the FMC regulations incorrectly. In one of those cases, it's the cargo receipt date specifically. But when we go to general counsel, they're also a little bit reticent to put down, carve in stone, a final answer. So everything that we get from them is really unofficial. And the responses that we got from them this past year, I'd have to say, were clear as mud. We have to go back now and see if we can't redefine the question and get a more proper answer on those. And that's a work in progress.
Nice. Okay. And then I guess just lastly, what do you feel or what do you think is the biggest benefit that members of NCBFAA are getting from the work that you or your subcommittee is putting together? Like, what is that advantage that they're getting for doing that versus just not even being a member? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. So I think the greatest benefit to the membership is the fact that we take a look at regulations before they become regulations and try to figure out what the downstream effect will be. And if it's an adverse effect, we go back and we work with the FMC on fine-tuning the verbiage. I can give you a perfect example. When OSRA, the Ocean Shipping Reform Act, was coming into being, the original authors of it had listed in several areas that the new regulation, this regulation A, would be subject that common carriers are subject to that. Common carriers are subject to the next one. Common carriers are subject to the last one. So being that we're NVOCCs, the last CC in there is common carrier, and effectively what the authors of OSRA were doing was they were putting together rules that they were targeting at the vessel operating common carriers, but not intended for the NVOCCs. So we had to go back to the drawing board with the authors and say, you really need to define common carriers as ocean common carriers, the definition that exists within the Shipping Act, so that we're clear that this doesn't also apply to non-vessel operating common carriers. Had it been enacted the way it was written, NVOCCs would not have been able to comply with the new OSRA rules. And so, thank goodness we were able to prevail at both the congressional and Senate level to have the verbiage changed. And then all NVOCCs benefited as a result of that. So that's the kind of thing that we carry on in our committee.
Awesome. Yeah. So obviously for those that are members, we are members. We're not a broker, but we are what are called, I believe they call us affiliate members that are service providers, and we see all that coming down. I mean, and just for the benefit of those who do not subscribe to or are part of the membership, I mean, y'all get we get messages from NCBFA every Monday for sure, but with all these themes going on with the government, being anything that the administration might push out that might be needing clarification, we're getting like several updates a week. So there's a big benefit there. Thank you, Rich. Thank you so much for sitting here and letting us know about the work that you're doing with NCBFA and of course the Transportation Committee. I've seen you around, and I'll make sure that next time that we're at a conference in person, I'll go out and shake your hand, since I had not formally met you before. So thank you so much for being here. We'll get into a little bit more, I guess, into a bunch of different things that you all are talking about. But for right now, we do also have Donna Kavanaugh here with us, who is also part of the subcommittee for exporting. And again, Donna, please excuse me. I'm sorry if I messed it up. But anyway, so I'm assuming you work closely with like the efforts of like behind the BIS and things that are going on in that part of the.
Yes, that's exactly right. So the Export Compliance Subcommittee has responsibilities for watching the regulations, upcoming changes that are impacted by freight forwarders with Bureau of Industry and Security, Director of Defense Trade Controls, Office of Foreign Affairs and Controls, Census Bureau, the U.S. Census Bureau, which is the agency that's responsible for the electronic export filing that we have to do, that forwarders often do on behalf of their customers. They're authorized to do so when they're authorized to do so. So we watch from the perspective of a freight forwarder. A lot of these regulations are geared toward an exporter or the principal party of interest, as it's phrased in the foreign trade regulations. We look at the regulations from how is this impacting a freight forwarder's role and responsibility. And we really try to advocate with these government agencies, build our relationship with the government agencies to help them and show them how we're different. We aren't the exporter. We have a very important role, and we do have to maintain compliance with all of the regulations, but we also have a very different role from the exporter. So we try very hard to build our relationships with these government agencies and point out our differences between what an exporter's responsibility is and what a forwarder's responsibility is.
Exactly. So let me ask you something, because I feel, although if you look at it carefully, it's not really true, but I feel that exporting has kind of taken a little bit of a backseat here since the new administration came on, for super obvious reasons, right? Anything, whenever anybody talks about tariffs, at least here in the United States, we're talking about importing. But what we don't see is the flip side, because if there's retaliatory tariffs on us, that totally affects the exporting process. So let's start there. Like, what has the committee done, or what have you all been involved in either, just talking to government officials and trying to advocate for the industry since the new administration? Like, how has that challenge changed since maybe the previous 4 years, for example?
Yeah, so there have been some changes. The new administration, when it came out, BIS, Bureau of Industry and Security, had an update conference in March, and they were really heavily focused on China, which was a little different from previous administrations. It was last year, or the previous administration had a big focus on Russia. This administration seems to have a big focus on China. Some of the interim final rules and some of the rules that were put in place with the previous administration have been relaxed or rescinded or amended. So we're monitoring those. One example is there was a firearms rule that was interim final rule that was in place, and that has essentially been, for the most part, rescinded by this administration. They kept very few things in that. in the interim final rule. Same with AI diffusion. There have been changes in that, and they're looking at amending that entire rule. It hasn't been completed yet, but we're expecting that to come in the future. So maybe next year we can look for that to come out. We're not sure. Syria has been a change. OFAC has essentially revoked the regulations on Syria. BIS has relaxed them. So we have to look at it from a holistic approach. So just because they may have been revoked, the Syria sanctions may have been taken away by OFAC, there's still sanctions by BIS. And even though BIS has relaxed those regulations, there's still regulations. So proceed cautiously, proceed with care. And that's what we try to help the members do, is to understand what these changes are, and also help them to say, even though, take a step back and review them, even though one agency may have done one thing, you still have to abide by other agencies' regulations. So each agency has their own regulations that we have to abide to. And what one agency does isn't necessarily completely 100% in sync with what another agency does. So you still can't ignore the other agency's regulations. So it's been fun. It's been very interesting. And there's a lot of positions that have been vacated and haven't been filled yet. So we're still monitoring that as well, and hoping maybe to see some of those positions be filled in the future, maybe into 2026, so that we have a solid administration that can move whatever their focus is forward, and we'll monitor that for our members.
Right. Okay. So let me ask you. So you in everything that you just said, I heard some references to like educating and helping the membership, understand this. I think I saw somewhere that y'all had a webinar earlier this year. I don't know how earlier this was, on something about exporting for the rest of us or something like that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we did.
Okay. So when y'all have efforts like that, or when you put out education like that, I feel personally that this is the competitive advantage that the small carriers or small operators out there get from being a member, only because, in my opinion, they're getting all this wealth of information from like the bigger guys, right? I mean, I don't know. Again, I hope I'm not botching this up or it not making sense, but hopefully you understand what I'm trying to get at. Do you feel that is one of the advantages that a member might get, because they get that in? I'm not calling it insider information, because it's really not insider, but it's like, at least it's put to you where otherwise you might missed it.
Absolutely. And that is a definite benefit to the membership. It's for the little guys, the big guys, the medium sized, it's for all. It really is. It's a collaboration, and even though we're all competitors, we're all friends. We all have the same problems, and nobody wants to make that call to the government agency and ask the question. So to have the association as representation, like you said, we did the webinar earlier in October, so last month. And then it was intended for people who did not have an in-depth knowledge. It was intended to be a practical approach for the members that do not have the export experience and want to have a broader understanding of it. So we tried to put it into practical terms. I hope that was successful. But yes, that is definitely a benefit of being a member, is having the collaboration and having an association stand by and have that support, where you're not standing alone and going to the government agency and looking like, okay, I'm the troublemaker. I'm the only one that has this question. I'm the only one that has this concern.
Right. Well,
It's
that's
shared.
perfect. No, yeah. I mean, that's kind of the way I feel about AI as well. It puts us smaller businesses at an advantage, where I can take a lot of the work that normally gets done by 5, 6, 7 people and try to get it done, using AI and all that, so it makes sense. I'm kind of putting it more in my world and my understanding, so I'm trying to kind of do some analogies here. Hopefully I didn't botch
You're
that
doing a
up.
great job.
And so thank you, Donna. I mean, anything else? Anything that we need to be looking forward to 2026? Any your crystal ball, like what may happen, or is everything going to chill out now, or
Well, that remains to be seen. I wish that crystal ball was a little bit more clear. I guess that probably the last thing I would comment on is there was just a rule that was published. It was by BIS. It was called the affiliates rule.
Oh yeah.
And it really was going to be a big change for industry, and it will be a big change. It was published as a final rule at the end of September. And what it did was it put a much broader restriction on parties that that can be exported to. And it wasn't just a matter of searching a list. It was based on the ownership of entities that are listed on the government, on BIS's, the entity list, the military end user list, and certain parties on the specially designated nationals list. It was, so if you were owned, so the owners of these companies, if they were 50% more owned by someone, those, you also got held by restriction, even though you weren't on the actual list itself. So it made screening of restricted parties much more difficult to do. When the president was in having the meeting with China, we're hearing that this interim final rule may be put on pause for a year. The association did submit comments to the rule from a freight forwarder's perspective and what we felt our role was in this screening responsibility, because we don't have a relationship with all the parties to the transactions, where our role is to move the freight. So we don't have privy to the contracts of our customers. We don't know their whole supply chain. We don't know all the parties downstream. So we did submit comments on this rule as the association, and we're hearing it's going to be put on pause for a year, effective November 10th. However, we haven't seen the official notice come out from the Bureau of Industry and Security yet. So we're still, again, waiting to see on that. But we also, at the same time, want to have conversations with BIS and say, you know, the comments are there. We think you should be reviewing them because we don't know if something's going to change next month and the rule gets re-implemented. So we want to have conversations with the government, encouraging them to still review the comments now and not wait until the pause is over, and get that part working on, because it could be re-implemented.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, earlier I preempted this conversation with you, as we hear a lot here on the importing side, you know, and people kind of tend to ignore exporting. But as you just very clearly said, there's a lot going on, and even talks or handshakes, you know, like you said, you know, that cannot be taken as, oh, good, then I don't need to worry about it until you see it officially. And either, I don't know how yours that end works or not, like if there's like you need to see it on the Federal Register or something more formal, but you know, kind of like you do on the importing side. But anyway, so that emphasizes that. So thank you so much, Donna. And so Kim, and of course Donna, you feel free to jump in as much as you need to. But Kim, maybe we ought to talk a little bit more about all the other committees. And unfortunately, some of the other folks were not able to come in from your subcommittees. But you did talk about several others that are headed up by like Donna Mullins. And I think you talked a little bit about, and let me see, I'm going to get his merit. Yes. Okay. And that head up other different subcommittees. So let's start with whatever Donna Mullins, and friend of the show, by the way, she's been on our show. Funny lady. If y'all ever meet her in person, you're in for a good time. She is so much fun. She's
Yes.
great.
She is equally as fun as she is knowledgeable in
Right.
the industry.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
crazy how much she knows. Yeah, exactly. So you can sit there with her and both laugh and like be so educated at the same time. It's crazy how much she knows. So she heads up the air freight subcommittee, correct?
Yes, she does.
Okay.
She is very busy all the time with making sure the air freight industry, both on the import and export side, is kept moving forward. One of the most recent things that it's been a long time coming. It's been a lot of work put into it. The association, we collaborate or connect with and work with other associations as much as possible. There are so many things going on in the industry that if we have the opportunity to collaborate with another association, it just makes our work that much stronger. So in this case, Donna Mullins and the NCBFAA partnered with the Air Forwarders Association, or AFA, to write a white paper about air cargo and some of the things that are needed in the U.S. air cargo industry, such as facility improvement. Some of the facilities are, 40 plus years old. The roads into the cargo section of that airport are not built enough to allow both traffic in and out as much as it's needed right now. There's limitations in some airport cargo facilities for the size of trailer that can fit in there. There's a lot of things that need to be updated on the air cargo side specifically. So with the AFA, a white paper was produced, which led into a GAO study. And that GAO study a report was released in, I believe, July of this year, and that helps push the initiative forward. So she continues to work in connection with the AFA to help facilitate some of those improvements, just turning that advocacy into action so that we can start looking at the airports, maybe some of those that are most desperate need of that improvement, and work from there to get funds allocated from the government to that cargo part of that airport. So that's been something really big that she's been working on that has had positive results so far, and she keeps pushing forward.
Nice. So you say keep pushing forward, meaning that this is going to obviously roll into 2026. But the reason I say that is because she was on our show previously, and she talked about things that scare her. By the way, it was a Halloween week episode, and she talks about how it's taken so long to do so many things because of lack of personnel, lack of, and pretty much what Donna Kavanaugh said as well. There's a bunch of empty gaps in positions. So do you all feel like there might be some relief in that here soon, or maybe not? Or, I mean, what's the outlook? I know right now, when we're recording this show, as of today, it is November 7th. There is a shutdown going on. I really don't know, again, if that is affecting that or not. I mean, they say it's not affecting customs, CBP. Trade is still flowing and everything. But like in your world here, Kim, like how do you see that? Or what are the challenges in getting to what Donna said, in that episode, like to getting to full fulfillment of bodies of people, helping and making sure that things are much better?
I would say the shutdown and lack of personnel affects air freight and the Export Compliance Subcommittee and other things in more ways than one. One of the ways that it's affecting it is changing the focus. So while we had great momentum up to the shutdown, and the focus changed from our legislators on when we were advocating for certain things, their focus is now to get the government back open. Also within TSA, there's, only essential tasks or essential initiatives or objectives are being focused on. So some of these may not seem to be essential. With, the slowdown mandated by the FAA of flights, that's also a focus shift from air cargo to passenger cargo or passenger operations.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that affect us in many different ways. So even though TSA is still working, there was a shift there, even though, there are things going on in Congress. There's a particular focus there, and we have to make sure that we don't lose our own momentum and keep that conversation going.
Great. So let's shift a little bit more to the other subcommittees. There's one other one that's pretty big, the Logistics Committee. Again, just same question, same effort, same focus. What this year has there been that has helped or moved the needle, I guess, forward, let's say, for the logistics industry, for your members that you all have been talking about?
On the logistics side, there's a couple different key things that they've been watching. One of the most recent are the tariffs on the trucks and larger equipment. We already have driver shortages for different drays or trucking throughout the United States. And we're watching these tariffs on the actual vehicles themselves to see if this is going to cause even more of a burden for trade, looking at different ways that maybe we can mitigate the driver shortage, just watching that so that members are kept aware, maybe things that they can look out for or contribute to help that situation. The committee's also been looking or watching the electronic export manifest
Mhm.
in collaboration with Donna Kavanaugh and her committee because it crosses, of course, both the logistics and the export compliance side of things. Electronic export manifest is something that's been worked on for a very long time. There was a notice of proposed rulemaking for rail mode of transportation that came out at the beginning of 2025. The association did create a working group specifically for EEM, addressed that, submitted comments, and continues conversations with the association members, with customs, and then also with other associations who are made up of NVOCCs or other trade community partners so that we can make sure we're aligning and having those conversations. Whenever we have these types of conversations with government agencies, we understand their objectives. Our goal is to make sure that they are able to meet their objectives and do what they need to do while also keeping trade moving and making sure that our responsibilities and part of the transaction are understood as far as the context of their regulations and different enforcement actions are concerned. And the last thing that the committee has been working on throughout the year and even before 2025 is the entry summary filing or ENS filing into EU's ICS2 system. The filing is mandatory for House filers now, which affect association members. So just understanding what those responsibilities are, how to do that filing, spreading around information to members as much as possible so that we're able to be as compliant as we can. Um, Knowledge is the key to being compliant. You have to know what the requirements are so you can meet those requirements.
Awesome. So now that we got a good like view of everything that's been going on with your committee and for the sake of time here as well, let's see if we can like wrap up with some like questions, I guess, just to put it all and put a little bow here on this little package here. Let's see. I did have some questions that I wrote down. So I guess like for any one of you two that are left here in the conversation, what do you feel have been like the most significant lesson learned, let's say, of 2025? Like what did you learn from anything that might have happened throughout the year that may help you like grow or be more prepared for 2026? Because this has been admittedly a very unpredictable year. Of course, the administration has been very aggressive, for better or for worse. Again, we're not here to criticize that. We're more like here to deal with it, of course, and help our members, or your members. I'm sorry. I'm part of the membership, so I can say our members.
Yes, honorary part, yes.
I'm guilty by association, kind of like that 50% affiliate rule or whatever.
Yes.
So anyway, so what are your thoughts on that?
From my perspective, I would say that one of the biggest lessons learned could be summed up in maybe adaptability, shift in priorities of the government. Not saying good or bad, but just a shift there. So understanding change in engagement with what we like to call our government agency partners. We like to consider the collaborative reciprocal relationship that we have. So adapting to that new way to collaborate with them and work with them, adapting to the change in policy, whether it is a swift change, as in almost the whiplash we received from the BIS affiliate rule issuance, and then the revocation of that, and all of the things that come with our industry, just the day-to-day challenges, but then weaving in those other needs for adaptability with those conversations and with the regulatory landscape changes.
Awesome. So let's wrap this up then. So what, I guess, any words of encouragement? I mean, let me just put it this way. Okay. So when I talk to you all, when we're in person, I get this common theme from like just about any one of you that are in like heading subcommittees, and in your case, Kim, the whole committee, that when you first got into this, be it business or in some cases the association NCBFAA, you might be in the business for 20 years, but you're just going to be the member for the first time. Regardless of the fact, one of the common themes that I get is that you were a little reluctant or a little shy. I don't know if shy is the word, just like
No, it's a good word
unsure, right?
for me. But yeah.
Unsure of getting involved in a committee or anything. But look how much you've grown. I mean, Kim, everybody knows you, and like all the information you bring to us, and like the leadership and everything. Any words of encouragement from either one of you or both of you on that?
From my perspective, I would have to say that it's really just taking that leap. If you want to be involved, be involved. If you need some time to observe and acclimate, just do that and then start stepping in a little bit at a time to be involved. We want people to be involved. We want that collaboration. If you're thinking about it, just reach out to myself or Donna Mullins, Donna Kavanaugh, Rich, Merritt, reach out to whomever if you want to participate. We are happy to have you. And in any way that you want to contribute, that is what we want from you. We are a group that is inclusive, and whoever wants to be part of that group and driving things forward, we need input from everyone, from different kinds of companies, people who specialize in different things. That's what makes us a great association, is the variety of members that we have and the variety of contributions.
Awesome. Donna,
And I would
anything?
echo that, everything that Kim just said. For me, when I started, it was intimidation. I was totally intimidated. Like, these people are so smart. They know everything. I am afraid to speak. I was afraid to ask questions. And I would encourage people, the saying is true. There is no such thing as a stupid question. Everybody's thought counts. Everybody is an expert in their own little areas, and that's what makes this association so great and our committee so great, is we take all those little pieces of expertise and we collaborate them into our committees. And that's what makes us so good, because I might know, one piece of the business. I might know use self-propelled vehicles. Somebody else is really good with ITAR goods. Somebody else is really good with in another area. And we share that. We're competitors, but we share because we all want to be the best at what we are, and we want to help each other to become the best. So ask questions. Don't be afraid to participate. We're all here to learn, and we all learn something new every single day in this industry.
All right, so as we get to closing out 2025, we're looking forward to 2026. We're going to kick off the year with an NVOCC Day. It will follow our NVOCC Day that was in New York in 2025. On January 22nd, 2026, we will have NVOCC Day in New Orleans. It is open to member and non-member NVOCCs for all level, from operators to management, within that NVOCC. So look at the NCBFAA website for the information on how to register for that event.
Awesome. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Very, very good information. We appreciate you all coming here, taking the time. I am so excited. This is our second year of partnering and collaborating with NCBFAA. I'm so glad that we're doing this. Again, everyone, this is part of a series of episodes that will be dropping to you on a weekly basis. I'm saying through the end of the year, depending on how many episodes we have, which I think it might actually carry us through the end of the year. So thank you all for joining us here on the podcast. First and foremost. Secondly, hit up NCBFAA and check the show notes. If you're not a member yet, even if you're not a practicing broker, you might have your broker's license, but you're not a practicing broker, you can still become a member. There's so many opportunities that you can get from or take on with NCBFAA. So thank you for joining us. And for now, thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you, Lalo.
Thank you.
Thank you.